was you. I've been places that aren't very pretty.
Hello and welcome to the first video in our Word of the Year art journaling series. So I am here, we're just going to get right into it. I am making a cover for my journal. This is going to be a softbound cover, and I have a piece of Bristol paper here, and I'm not sure the actual dimension. I think it's like a 9 by 12 size. And I have no plan. So there is no forethought. If you're wondering what's going on here, where I was thinking, I had no idea what I was doing. I just decided to put down some color. At the time, I was thinking I was going to make a hardcover journal. And then I decided that I really wanted something with a lot of texture, something that felt very tangible and soft. And I liked the big size. I wanted something big to work in. So I just have a piece of Bristol paper. You could use mixed media paper. You could use a brown paper bag. Whatever you have on hand, you can use. And of course, you could make your cover smaller or larger, depending on what it is that you want to have for your cover. And while that's drying, I decided to take out my workbook. Now, this is a workbook that I designed and is available in my shop, and I'll link it in the description below. And I'm just writing out the word that I decided, and I'm thinking I'm going to add this in some way to my journal, and I'm just writing down, how I felt. And actually, this workbook was one of the reasons I thought about making it a larger size so that I could put the pages in, because this workbook includes a monthly check-in where you can check in with your word each month, a couple of quick questions just to go through and get an idea for how your word is working for you. So one of the things I really want to encourage you with this journal, and all journals, but specifically this one, the whole purpose of this is for it to feel like you, to feel like a space that you can come to and really be yourself, where you can let out how you're feeling, where you can explore ideas, play, and not worry about aesthetics or how things look. So make this your journal. So if this is not your style, this, mishmash of materials, I'm adding some tissue paper now here with some gel matte medium, I think is what I'm using. And just because I like texture, I like bright colors, but if you like something more muted, you could use a piece of scrapbook, or if you want something more clean lines, you can use a piece of scrapbook paper. You could use 2 pieces of scrapbook paper that you tape together to make a spine. So really, don't be limited by my aesthetic. Let this be a journal that you feel when you look at it, that you can come to it, that you can play, that you can really explore yourself. So it's supposed to look and feel like you. So I want to encourage you to just let that go. I am creating right now, and I'm just enjoying the act of creating. I am not focusing. I don't have a plan on how this is going to look. And for a while, I'm not even sure I liked it. I wasn't even sure if this was going to be the journal. But in the end, I absolutely loved it. And I still do. I'm just constantly holding it, and I haven't even worked in it yet, but I just love the feel of it. And that's what you want. You want something that you're going to enjoy coming to on a regular basis. And then once it dried, the tissue paper that I put on here, I'm just taking some white gesso and I am adding that to the cover just to kind of tone down. I felt like the yellow and the pink was a little more stark than I wanted, and I wanted to kind of knock that back a little bit. So I just took some white gesso and I couldn't find a card, so I think I was using a piece of cardboard to spread it, and that just gives it a little bit more of a textured feel. So that's definitely something that you can do as well, to add some texture to your cover. And now I'm going through, and I had a bunch of just magazine images that I cut out. I did that off camera. But you can have a lot of fun pulling out magazine images. You can pull out your own artwork if you've created some. You could draw something on the cover. Of course, this is, your journal. So I'm just offering you one way of creating a cover, a fun way that I like to do, to really make it feel like me and my space. And I do love making really streamlined journals and neat looking journals at times. But I also, this is me. This is my favorite kind of artwork, is to have mixed media, lots of texture, lots of color. I love, love collage. It's my favorite way to create. And so for me, this is fun. It's relaxing. It really calms me down. It connects me with things. And I would encourage you if, maybe you don't want this for your Word of the Year journal. Maybe for your Word of the Year journal, you want a different look. But I would definitely encourage you to have at least one journal where you give yourself permission. I mean, I would encourage you to have all your journals. Your journals really are supposed to be your space. But I would definitely encourage you, if you don't, have a journal that, or set yourself up with a journal. It can be a composition notebook. It does not have to be something fancy. You don't have to make it. I'm using a piece of Bristol paper here. You could be using a piece of scrapbook paper that you decide to paint over. There's so many things you can do. Just make sure you have a journal where you get to go and you can play there, where you can make mistakes, have fun, try something new, work on a page, and then if you don't like it, you can walk away from it and come back later and cover it up and start over. It's a really powerful experience to have a place where you can show up however you're feeling. If you're feeling like you're having the worst day, maybe you're struggling with anxiety, maybe you're struggling with feeling lonely, having a place where you feel you can come and be heard and be seen, and it's okay, to put that stuff in your journal and let it hold it for you. And one of my favorite things to do is then maybe paint over it. I don't need to go back and reread how I was feeling. I don't need to go back and see those feelings. I know they're there. I know they're out of my head now, and then I can cover them up and create over it perhaps how I want to feel, or something to give me inspiration or give me hope. So I would encourage you, if you can, while you're making this journal, is let it be play. Let yourself have fun. There's really, the way I'm creating here, I have no rhyme or reason. I have no idea what I'm doing. And at one point, I put down an image that I absolutely love, and I'll let you know when that happens. And then I started doing stuff to it, and I thought I ruined it for sure. I was like, oh, this was such a great image. I should have left it. It was an image I cut out from an art journaling magazine, and I loved the piece because it felt like my word of the year. My word of the year, which you might have seen it, but I didn't tell you, is faith-filled. Because I want to be filled with faith. My husband was like, don't you mean faithful? And I'm like, no, it's kind of like a two-word. Like, I really want to be filled with faith. And that's my focus. I want to have faith and trust. And so that was my word. This is the image. So this is the image. I absolutely love this original image, but I did want to make it my own. And add a little bit to it. And then, yeah, you'll see at one point I cover it up and I'm like, oh, I really messed this up. Really thought I had done it in at this point. But then I was able to recover it and come back. So just remember, you can always add more paint. You can always add a different image, try again, have fun and let this be your playtime, because a lot of the work is in the making of art. It's not just, or at least for me, the inner work. A lot of working with our word of the year is something that we want to be very tangible with. We want it to be something that we can really get a hold of, and we want it to be something that we can interact with. Otherwise, it's just a word that we pick out and then we don't really do much with. And if you really want your word to kind of work for you, then taking this time and allowing yourself to just play and to be yourself, not creating in the way that you think you should be creating, and or a way that you think is just going to look good when you're done. You really want this to be something that's interactive, that you're able to work with. And so that's why I would encourage you, just let yourself make mistakes, let yourself have bad pages, or pages that you're like, yeah, it's not my favorite page, but you're doing it. It's the practice that really matters, especially with this, with what we're doing with the word of the year, because we want our word of the year, whatever we've chosen, to help us move our life in the direction that we're seeking for this year, not just a word that we pick out and then, it's a great practice for the beginning of the year. So if you're watching this and it's July, and you're like, oh, I haven't picked a word, pick a word. It doesn't have to be a word of the year. It could just be a word for the month. It could be a word for the season. It could be a word for right now. So you can see here, I put that down, not realizing that the other side was still wet. So it got a little white gesso on there. That's okay. I was like, I didn't mean to do that. But then I thought, well, you know what? I'll figure something out as I go along. And I really wanted to put a face on her, but I just knew I wasn't going to like what I drew. knew I wasn't going to like what I did. And it's such a beautiful piece as it was. And I wish I knew which the artist it was from the magazine I took it from. So if anyone does know, please let me know, because I'd love to put it down, because I really love that. I took it from an art, I think it was one of the art journaling magazines. But I kind of have a stack that I just go through and take images out as I like them, so I really don't know whose it was. And now I'm just using scraps, and I'm adding some of the scraps to here just to give more interest and texture, and really just trying to puzzle piece my own little creation out of all of these. And that's one of the things I love about collage. So that's what I'm going to be doing here, and I'm just going to let you watch and enjoy as I make the rest of my cover.
I used to think that love just wasn't for me, but you said you'd prove me wrong if I just wait and see. So you asked me out for coffee on a Friday night, and I don't even like coffee, but it just felt right. Ooh, I never saw this coming. Well, yesterday we were we, but yesterday you said you didn't need me, and that was the day that you gave it all up. Just yesterday I thought we might be in love. We used to go walking in the evening just before it got dark. It was strange in such a short time how you came to hold my heart. And it scares me now looking back on how fast I felt. Back then it was exciting with your hand that I held. Ooh, I never saw this coming. Ooh, I should've took off running, 'cause yesterday we were we, but yesterday you said you didn't need me, and that was the day that you gave it all up. Just yesterday I thought we might be in love. You told me you were here for good. You said stop looking over your shoulder, there's no one there, and I will protect you. So I let my guard down faster than I should. Thought I'd be fine, and I was when you were mine. But yesterday we were we, but yesterday you said you didn't need me, and that was the day that you gave it all up. Just yesterday I thought we might be in love, but yesterday we were we. Sometime in this past week you stopped caring about me, so I would be old and through. At least that's what you told me you needed to do. I guess somewhere in our last few days you changed, made a list of your priorities, sat down and rearranged. And I didn't make the cut, though I did all I could. I guess I let my guard down faster than I should. Well, see, I hated you for a long time, but one day smile with your lips squirt to the side. And all I've got are freckles, curly hair, and my pride. But you seem to find that things are okay when I'm around. And your eyes are like a storm while I sit on a cloud. And I can't believe that I am yours and you are mine. Sometimes your temper gets the best of you, and I always have to have the last word. But then you kiss me and I fall apart. You say I'm the only one who's ever touched your heart. Well, you do that sort of smile with your lips squirt to the side. And all I've got are freckles, curly hair, and my pride. But seem to find that things are okay when I'm around. And your eyes are like a storm while I sit on a cloud. And I can't believe that I am yours and you are mine. I can't believe that you are mine, you are mine. Sides of town, and your parents hate my name and how I sound. So you kindly tell them just to shut up, because to you I am just enough. We're just enough. Well, you do that sort of smile with your lips squirt to the side. And all I've got are freckles, curly hair, and my pride. But you seem to find that things are okay when I'm around. And your eyes are like a storm while I sit on a cloud. And I can't believe that I am yours and you are mine. I can't believe that you are mine, you are mine.
So now my journal cover is complete, and I'm very happy with the way the front is looking. I've fixed what I messed up, I thought, on that one piece, and now I'm really, really happy with it. And it feels like the kind of journal I'm going to want to work in. So I decide that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the inside cover, and I wanted to do it in this like turquoisey green color. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover the inside and then let that dry while I make the pages for the inside of my journal. So now I have covered my desk to protect it a little bit from what I'm about to do. I'm making some painted pages. I wanted all of my pages that I'm going to be working on in the journal to have some really great texture. And I didn't want to do coffee dyeing or have a vintage look. I really wanted them to be bright and colorful. So what I am doing, and this is a technique, this isn't my idea, I learned this recently from watching one of Jenny Belly's old videos, and I'll try to link it in the description box below because she goes into more detail than just watching me do this, and she has a great video on it, and she talks about different techniques that you can do to get a similar effect. But that was the inspiration for what I'm doing here. So I will link her video if you want to know a little bit more about making these kinds of textured pages. But in essence, what I'm doing is I have just regular printer paper here, regular copy paper, and I am, as you can see, just smearing on some color. Then I'm adding like a second color just to tone it down, give some texture, and then I just crinkle up the page, and then I open it up, and then I'm laying it down to dry. I had papers like strewn all over the studio. And then I just let them to dry, and then when they dry, they have this really great texture, and they're really crinkly, and it also thickens the pages up a little bit, so it feels a bit more substantial. And I actually am so happy with the results of these that I think I'm going to be doing this a lot more often. This is the first time I've ever done this in an art journal before. I've used pages that I've colored. I mentioned in the intro video that I did last week, pages that I've colored with like Kool-Aid or Rit dye, and those are really great because I do love a paper with a texture to it, but I don't always like vintage, so I don't want to do something that looks, I don't always want vintage, so I didn't want to do something that was a bit of with the coffee staining and stuff. It's a really cool effect too. But as I said, I just wanted something that was really bright and colorful. And this was a lot of fun to do. If you don't like to get messy, then you might want to wear gloves or maybe pick a different technique or use different paper. Because of course you don't have to go through all this to make your journal. I just really wanted something with texture. And what's nice about this is it does bulk up the journal a lot. So again, if this is not something that you like from an aesthetic point of view, then that's not something that you would want to do, but I really like that look. So these are all of my papers. They're textured and they're pretty. I had thought I was going to go back and do the reverse side, but I decided I didn't want to. I was going to leave some of the pages. They have stains, colors on the back anyway, so some of them will be white-ish. So I'm not going to go ahead and do the back side, but of course you could if that was important to you. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out the best way to combine these pages to make a full-size sheet so that I can attach it to my journal. So what I'm doing is, this is a technique that I also found on another YouTube video. I'm going to link it in the description because she does a great walkthrough on how to take, if I took these 8.5, these are all 8.5 by 11 sheets and folded them in half either way, I would have had a lot of extra space in the cover. So the cover would have been huge compared to the pages. So what I'm doing is I'm going to keep them as 8.5 by 11s. And then I'm going to attach them using old book pages, or you could use magazine paper. You could probably use masking tape. I was debating about using that at one point. So that's something that you can totally do. I'm showing here that you can add some more texture to your pages. That was using some gilding paste. But I think I'm going to keep these very simple for right now because I want to come to each page fresh and just work on it. So what I am doing is I've basically cut some strips from an old book that I've gutted. And so these are just regular, it's a thicker book page. And I've measured it, I believe I came up with 1.25 wide, and then it's as high as my pages are. So your journal might be different depending on what size journal you're making. But I am just using this to attach two pieces together, and I've kind of alternated them. So I have one white page that I didn't paint, and then facing a painted page, if that makes sense. You can kind of see it here. And then I just fold them in half and test them in the journal. I'm using a wet glue to attach these, so I was just testing it there, but I would definitely leave it laying flat and let the glue really dry well before you fold them in half and try them in your journal. But I'm going through and I'm just cutting strips. I'm pretty sure it was 1.25 inch wide. Again, that can vary depending on how big you're making your journal, how many pages you're putting in your journal. I think I went for having a double page for every week of the year, so I could check in with my word of the year each week. So there were 52 weeks, so there's 52 weeks in the year, and so I went for the double pages. So that's kind of how I worked out how many pages that I wanted to have in my journal. You may want to have more or less depending on how you plan on working on it, the cover that you're doing, and that sort of thing. This is just, again, one way that you can have fun and make a journal. So I'm going to go through, I cut all my strips, and then I'm going to glue all of the pages together, 2 pages, to each of these strips, and I'll show you me doing that here. So once I had all my strips cut, I randomly grabbed my pages. I added a little thin bead of glue. I was using Fabri-Tac, I think, for that, and then I was just attaching, as I said, one page where you had the painted side on one and then the non-painted side facing it, so that it gave just a little bit more interest when I put them, when I was going to sew them all into the journal, so that it gave a little, you didn't have 2 painted pages together against 2 white pages. It doesn't really matter. It was just my logic as I was going through this, but of course you can do whatever works. And the neat thing is that because of that crinkling up the pages and having paint all over my hands, the back pages aren't completely blank, so it gives a lot of neat interest. But so if you see here, and hopefully if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you do watch the other video, and I can't remember the channel name, but I'll link it all below, she walks through in detail kind of how she adds pages like this. When you don't want to fold your papers in half and you want to sew them into a journal, how to go about, kind of doing it. So it'll give you a little more detail, but for this purpose, I just wanted to show you a fun way to kind of get some textured pages into your journal. And I, as I said, I really love this painted technique, and I think it's so much fun. So once the glue had dried, I went ahead and folded all my pages in half, and you can see how much bulk this adds. So just keep that in mind when you're making your own journal, that if you don't really want a big, chunky, bulky journal, that you might want to either add a spine or, do it a little different than I'm doing. But I personally love this. And now you can see that the pages are hanging over the side of the cover. And I was thinking that I was going to go ahead and trim those once I sewed everything in, and I decided that I didn't want to. I really liked just the way the journal was, and I'm going to leave it like that. So what I'm doing is I'm using my crocodile I got at Christmas. I actually bought it as a little gift for myself off of eBay, because they're fairly expensive. This is the Crocodile Big Bite, I think it's called. So it has that extra length, so you can actually punch holes in the center of a full sheet of paper, as you can see here. And it's great. But they're a little expensive new, and I was able to get this, I think, for $30 something with shipping off of eBay. So it might be something to look into if it's something you like. But you can also just use an awl, like a pokey tool, to poke the holes in your journal. I've seen some people do needles. Of course, you want to be careful with whatever you're going to use. But I just poked 3 holes. I eyeballed it, and I actually messed up and went back and just kind of repunched one of them because it was a little off. So you can measure and be more precise than me if you'd like to do that. But I just poked 3 holes somewhere from the top, maybe about an inch. I don't even know if it was quite an inch. And then from the bottom. And then I'm using those holes to line them up to the fold in my cover, so that I know where to poke the holes for the cover, so that they'll line up and I can sew them in. And again, if you have any questions after watching this, or if something's unclear, please do comment below, and I'll be happy to, offer a little more explanation for you. So I haven't sped this part up so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm taking my baker's twine, which is what I'm using to attach the pages, and I'm going in through the center of the pages to the back cover. So through the hole into the back cover, or into the cover, but coming out the back side is what I'm trying to say. And then you want to leave a little tail on the inside there. And then I'm coming back through the back of the cover, in through the top hole, and into the pages. So you can see that there. And then I'm going to pull that nice and tight and take that all the way down. Sorry, I bumped the camera there a little bit. Then I'm going to take that all the way down to the bottom hole there, going in through the inside of the pages. As you can see, this is a basic pamphlet stitch. And then I'm coming out through the cover. I'll be coming out of the back of the cover here. Then I'm going to come back in through the back of the cover into the center hole that we started off in there. And then what you want to do is you want to have your string on either side. So one of the string, the tail that you initially started with, on one side of the string there, you can see, and another, the one that you just made, on the other side, so that you can knot over that main string that's there. So hopefully that's clear. And then pull those nice and tight, because that's going to secure your pages in. I'm just trying to show you there how you have one string on one side and one on the other. And then I'm going to do a double knot, nice and tight. And I'm going to do one more over. And I mean, you can even do it a third time if you wanted to be sure, just to make sure that that's going to stay put and those pages aren't going to come out. All right, and there you have it. That is my Word of the Year journal. As you can see, it's chunky, it's messy, it's textured. I love it. I do. It's my favorite way of creating. And the best part is I'm going to be, because they're regular 8.5 by 11 pages, I'm going to be able to put my workbook pages right in here, so I can work on them and glue them in, or I can just use them to go over my questions and just write them into the journal. I can write the answers out and tear them and then glue them into the journal. So there's so many fun things that we can do. The nice part is we're going to be doing this together throughout the entire year. So I just wanted to invite you to subscribe if that's something that you'd like to do. I'm just showing you here, by the way, that if you wanted to trim those extra edges off, you can do that with a ruler and just slowly go down the pages. That's the overhang of the pages from the cover. I like it, so I didn't do it, but that's something you can do. So if you would like to follow along, You can subscribe to my newsletter. I'll link that in the description box below as well. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel here, and I'm going to be art journaling you throughout the year so that we can stay in touch with our word and really work with it to bring about positive change in our life, to really create our lives with intention, not just start off the year great and then things slip off, which happens. And I want to also, if you are thinking, yes, this is great, I want to do that, I want to join along, don't feel bad if you miss it and all of a sudden you happen to find your way here again in May and you're like, wow, I haven't even done anything with my journal. It's okay, pick it up then and see where it takes you. The journals are always there waiting for us. It's not meant as a pressure. It's not another have to. This is a place for us to come and be restored, to connect with what we're trying to bring into our life. And there's nothing that you have to do to feel pressured about it. So that is my journal for the year. So I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Please comment below if you're going to be journaling along with me. I'd love to see that. And if you have a blog or something that you would like to share, please do, so that we could all come and check it out. And I'm just showing you a couple of other options here. So this is a hardcover journal I'm working on. In case you wanted something a little more streamlined, that's another option of something that you can do. So just some ideas there for you. And if you'd like to see me make a video on how to make a journal like that, comment below and I'd be happy to do that. All right, everyone, wishing you a beautiful 2023, and I will see you next time. Take care.